Hey, everybody, welcome. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen, with another phenomenal podcast today. This one I'm really excited about. We're talking my favorite fish in the world, calico bass. I'd rather fish for those than anything on the planet. And my good buddy, Benny Florentino, has taken it to a whole different level. So we're going to be talking calico bass today. We're going to be talking little boat fishing, boiler rocks, kelp, San Clemente Island, Catalina, Palos Verdes, anywhere a calico bass swims, that's where you're going to find Benny Florentino. So we're going to be talking calico bass today. So share this with your friends. Let everybody know we're talking calicos today because this is my very favorite fish. My wife and I, if we're going fishing, we're going calico bass fishing. That's both of our very favorite fish. But today is Deckhand Sports Friday, gang. We always talk about a Deckhand Sports on Fridays. We got a cool little video to show you, like we do every week on the 20-minute mark. And then we'll talk a little bit about their bags at the 20-minute mark. But it is Deckhand Sports Friday. And we could talk all day about all kinds of stuff, but I want to talk about calico bass with my good friend Benny. And so we're just going to start the show right now with Benny Florentino. And we're going full speed calico bass fishing. And I am super excited. Benny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave. I'm real excited to talk to you. I really enjoyed a lot of your videos. Very informative and just fun to listen to. And I can pick a few things off, and hopefully your viewers are doing the same. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Yeah, we got quite a few people now taking advantage of all the information we pump out over at our website. Your Saltwater Guide, we have over 4,200 members now that are just having the time of their lives catching fish every time they go fishing. And that's what it's all about. Absolutely. You and I will talk about that all day today. We get so excited when we hook a calico bass. It's like our first fish we've ever caught in our lives, right?
100%. Yeah. I know my guests are always going, man, you get really excited. I go, isn't this fun? It's supposed to be fun. It is fun. You know, big or small, they're fun.
It's all about the bite.
Yeah.
Like I talked with Michael 100%. Fulks with the history of sport fishing. There's a little segment on there where I just talk about how, and then Frank Lepresti talks about, and we're old guys. I'm 62, Frank's in his 70s. We still, all we want is to get a bite. Yeah. And I think you're the same way. You want that bite, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at what those guys do now. Look at Frank. He loves going to El Salto and fishing largemouth bass. You know, his favorite thing to do is catch bass now. And I'm the same way. Green or brown or spotted, it's fun stuff. You know, they're just fun. The tug is definitely the drug.
And we're always get to fish. When you're fishing bass, gang, you're always fishing in a beautiful place. Calico bass are like people. They like to be in really beautiful spots. Those boiler rocks, those kelp beds, those break walls. I mean, if you just slow it down and take a look around at where you're fishing, and I don't really do that very often where I stop and go, wow, look where I am at. But if you look, you're like, wow, this is really beautiful here. And the calico bass seems to love to, where the better looking the spot is, the more calico bass will be there, right?
Oh, what? Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, what's funny is those really beautiful places like Point Vicente, Laguna, and Italian Gardens, they really love it there, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, places we're not allowed to fish anymore. They really love it there.
They really love it there.
And gang, we'll bring some of that up later in the show about how important it is to get involved with CCA. Benny's a super huge supporter of CCA and a give back person like you can't believe. And we'll talk more about giving back and making sure the sport stays open later. But real quick, Benny, as we move along here on the show, I want to find out what got you into fishing. Somebody had to take you fishing.
Well, actually my cousin got me. We were probably about 10, you know, back in the early 70s, you were able to ride your bikes we lived in Wilmington. My dad was in the Navy. So we had a lot of time on our hands in the summer and on the weekend. So we weren't playing ball or seasonal sports. We were fishing. We'd ride our bikes up to 22nd Street before there was 22nd Street Landing. You know, we got to fish all the docks. They didn't bug us back there fishing bonita, piling perch, pulling, the crabs off the pilings and fishing butterlip perch, and started that way. And I had to have been 10. We used to ride our stingrays up there, chase the drunks up at Beacon Street on the way, or they chase us. Real harmless. Just we knew. And then I found out that you can get on boats and fish party boats near the kelp, or it seemed like there was always fish to be caught. You could almost every year, barracuda start biting in the spring, sand bass, calico bass, all you want in the summer, and then yellowtail generally about August on the Horseshoe. And I mainly fish the Horseshoe at the old Pier Point Landing, which used to have the seal troughs and all that, and then also Redondo. I don't know if you remember those there, the big seal tanks they had right in front of the landing, but they were there proudly displayed right in front of the landing. And then,
my dad used to take us up there. That was Alan Hale or Frank Hale.
Frank Hale.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, little kids. My dad would have to go up there for meetings while they would try to figure out what he's gonna do with the kids, because when my dad would hit the beach, he'd have to take care of me and my brother, and he'd take us up there, and it was an experience as a child to go up there and see all that. We didn't understand the hate for the California sea lion as little kids. We just thought that was the coolest thing in the world to see him displayed in front of the sport fishing landing.
Yeah, ironic. They were literally right there, So, and so I started going on the boats. I fished the Sport King when it was running out of, Pier Point. Then, of course, I fished half day on the Redondo Special, the City of Redondo, 3/4 day on the Sea Spray, John Glocken's boat. And then, as I got older, we just fished a lot of that. And then, I got married, had 2 kids. And then I used to take the kids with me because I couldn't really take them on the boat. They were too small. But there was the Redondo Isle, or the barge. And it was easy because it was like a big enclosed playground, bait tank, bait wells all over, you could drop down, catch fish. There was a TV in there. The kids could order whatever they want, at the galley, which they took full advantage of. There was places where they can take a nap, but for the most part, they were always out, messing with the bait, just like all kids do. And so I did that for a little while. Then when Matt got older, I think he was about 3 or 4, we started coming out with me on the half day and 3/4 day boats, and it just grew from there. And then I got a skiff, 17-foot sea squirt I bought for $3,000. It's the best deal ever. I think I put $4,000 into the boat, and I go, I've got to get rid of this. And I finally got an 18-foot Ken Craft, solid motor, and I had that for a few years, and the rest was history. I actually started throwing plastics on the half-day boat on the City of Redondo in the summer. A guy, we were fishing anchovies because anchovies were pretty prevalent back then in the 70s. And he goes, hey, kid, try these out. You won't have to change your bait. So I tied it. Of course, I think it was a Sabre 270. So you're talking live bait chovy rod, right? With a Penn squitter and 15-pound, trying to throw I think it was a 1/2 ounce or 1/4 ounce head, triangular type head, and a 4-inch worm king. It was a plastic swim bait in a brown bait color. And I would try to figure out how to cast it because, I had the anchovy lob going, right? And that's how I was casting. And he would watch me. He goes, no, just give it some, really snap it out there to get some distance. Like, oh, shoot, this is good. And, fish in the summertime, it was biting, big or small. It didn't matter. We were catching them. And I go, oh, man, this is good. From then, I was kind of hooked on the plastics thing. And I tried to find him anywhere. And he gave me a handful. And then I was able to purchase them from when they started selling them. And again, the rest was history. I just started fishing mainly. We only had 2 things really to fish, and that was surface iron or a swim bait or scampi. Those were the 3 type of baits we fished in the early days.
It was incredible, that scampi lure. Those bass, They could not help themselves. They just that lure when it first came out was, you're like, there's not going to be any fish left, right? This was incredible.
Especially during the sand bass spawn, man, it was lights out on the pink, pink or motor oil. I don't think there was, maybe there was a lime green, but I think that came out later. It was mainly motor oil and pink.
That motor oil was the key.
It
And you could
was. The
just
Calicos
drop it.
like that a lot.
You just dropped it over the side and let it sink. And when it stopped, you started winding and you had to fish. Oh, if I had the money that I made selling scampies back then, I'd have a big house right now. It was amazing. Everybody, I was carrying 60 people every day on the boat, and every single person had to have a scampi. It was the most incredible lure, and you just loaded the boat up. 600 sand bass on the morning trip, 600 on the afternoon trip. But I want to back up a little bit and go back to the barge, because this is something that people are watching our show right now, they don't understand. This barge fishing was a huge deal in California. It was a giant deal. Most landings and most pier operations, like San Clemente Pier and the landings up and down the coast, they all had a barge where you could go fish the barge, and you could go out there and you could hang out all day on the barge. And it was like a place for guys like my dad or Benny to put us. We couldn't get away. We couldn't get off of it. It's a great babysitting platform, and you were on that all day. And I've had so many people, Benny, that talk about it. That's where they all started. I talked to Phil Freeman. I was on his podcast. He was on mine. He talks about the glory days of fishing as a kid. The barge was it, gang. The barge, and I don't know why, probably insurance and all the other things and the environment, why we don't have these anymore, but they don't burn any fuel. They're anchored up. There's an anchor on the front. There's an anchor on the back. They laid exactly the same way every single day. But look it was crazy. And there was fish to catch. There was so much fish to catch back then on the boat. You know why it wouldn't work now? I'll be on the California sea lion. It wouldn't work. It would be impossible.
It would be. I mean, even if you went out there to catch mackerel, it would be really, really, really tough, because they would know it's an automatic. That's a posted up a restaurant for them to come and eat.
Right. Yeah, but it was an incredible fishery, gang. Those of you that never got to experience it, it was one of the most important parts of sport fishing in Southern California. It's where almost everybody got their start. A lot of the captains that are my age, you'd go back their lineage, they'll tell you, started out fishing on the barge. My dad or my mom or my grandpa or somebody, or like Benny said, ride your bikes down. And some nice person would buy you a ticket to go out on the boat. And the sport boat, back in those days, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling, but back in those days, they had most captains started out in the sport fishing industry running the boat that would take the people to the barge.
Yeah, absolutely. That was 100%.
And it was such a bitchin' fishery. And I thank you so much, Elliot, for throwing these pictures up, because, gang, this was an incredible time to be alive in California. It was just and Matt talked about how important that was to him.
I mean, it was great because you could spend a day with your kids. It wasn't unsafe, and everybody kind of looked after everybody. Hey, your kid's acting up over there. He's throwing bait at the seagulls or whatever. Hey, your bill's up over $120 now. What? Back in the 70s, 100. What did they eat? I don't know. I think he had like 10 candy bars, 5 sodas, and 3 grilled cheeses. I don't know, and about 10 bags of chips. But you look back to it, those were some of the best times. And I think anybody who has experienced it, I mean, those are memories that, man, unfortunately, we'll never have again. It was probably the easiest way to get your kids out in the outdoors. And it wasn't all just, junk fish. I mean, there was Dorado at one time caught up in the city of the Isle of Redondo. There was yellowtail. Heck, back in the day, there was even flurries of bluefin. But summertime, it was sand bass, bonita, and even chance at yellowtail. It was almost guaranteed. And of course, barracuda. But to go catching, I mean, mackerel, whatever it may be, was always an opportunity. And, the gals and guys that were in the galley were always really, really good to the kids, I think, and the anglers. It was kind of like a kind of a big gathering place. You see most of them, they're either there with their kids. It's just we all knew it was a place to take kids for their first time fishing.
It's just a phenomenal way to grow up in California. Just a phenomenal, just
Yeah.
like me getting to grow up on the end of the San Clemente Pier. You can't touch those times. It was just an incredible time. Ride your bike down to the San Clemente Pier and go all the way out to the end of the pier, and everybody be out on the end of the pier, and my dad would come in on the boat. It was just such a great time to grow up in the industry. Yeah. And gang, we talk about this a lot on the podcast. We don't want to lose this chance to take our children fishing. It is such an important thing to get your kids or your grandkids involved in this fishing thing. Benny, you work so hard with CCA and you give back so much and so much of your time, and you don't have extra time. People go, oh, Benny's giving away his extra. He doesn't have any extra time, gang. So when he's giving away time, he's giving away time.
Yeah. I mean, I try to do what I can. Unfortunately, monetarily, it makes it tough because I'm a one-man show. But, I try to do what I can as far as auctioning off trips. A trip for two to Catalina that's worth $1,400. A guy may auction off and get it for half price. I get it, but it's still money that goes to CCA that helps, the cause that we're trying to fight, for our right to continue fishing. And everybody knows what's going on right now, and they should really take notice of what Wayne's doing up there in Sacramento and down here with some of these meetings. It could mean a few more closures. That's very detrimental to some very iconic places that nobody ever thought, hey, they'll never close Point Loma. Well, they started one area. I mean, who knows for us up here? They started up there by Point Vicente. What makes them not take the rest of Palos Verdes on the south side or the north side? So we have to continue to help. If you're not a member, please, what is it, $40 now a year to help. In fact, if you go to their website, ccacalifornia.org, you can find out all the programs. Heck, if you want to donate $5 a month, you can donate $5 a month, $60 a year, just to help fishing. It's about as much as maybe less than a fishing license. So you can help that cause there. And you could also find about the STAR program. And hopefully I'm not going too far, Dave, as far as all these programs. Beginning Memorial Day to Labor Day, there will be a tournament that's online that anybody can get into. And it's only measured by length, not by weight. I mean, you could measure a 10-pound bluefin and it'll still be in the same running as a 300-pound bluefin. It's all by just measure it, send it in, and you're in the running to win a prize. In fact, I don't think Chris has released it yet, so I'm going to jump ahead. But in the month of June, when the tournament starts, Memorial Day through the month of June, the largest calico bass caught that's a member that is registered in the STAR tournament will win a fishing trip with me. It's about a $900 value. And all you have to do is catch a bass, a big bass, So that'll be introduced here probably in April, maybe, late April going into May. And then I'll put it out on my social media pages. But, that's one way I can help, is just to help raise awareness, and then also try to raise some funds by donating trips to auctions, and hopefully that helps. And I know it helps. And, I just offer trips.
And that's a huge thing. Like Benny said, he's a one-man show. So when he's giving it back, he's giving back from his heart, because he knows, looking back at the days on the Redondo Pier, looking back at all the days fishing, how important it was for him and for Matt and for all of us and our children. That's why I talk about it so much, and I try to bring in people that are involved with CCA, because I don't want to live in a world where our children aren't going to get a chance to fish, or our grandchildren, now that I'm so old. But yeah, gang, it's super important. And what's it going to take to slow down these closures? It's going to take money. Like Mike Lum said last week when he was on the show. And I said, we're not begging. Like Mike Lum said, we're at the point now where we're begging. We need your money, gang. We need to slow this down. If you're a fisherman, you got to get involved. And the Star Tournament is a phenomenal way to be involved because of the fact that there is so many different levels to win. And the top prize is going to be a Parker center console boat.
Yeah.
But there's just so many different things to win in this tournament. Plus, you're given every dime you give goes to CCA to keep fishing open. So it's a win-win all the way around. Whether you win a prize or not, you're still helping keep fishing open.
Right.
So we'll talk about that more later in the show. But Benny, what's happening? This is my favorite place to fish on the whole planet Earth. That was a little bit of San Clemente Island there. And we're going to get deep into talking about Clemente here as we keep moving along. But we're right there at the point where we're going to show you a quick little video from our big sponsor, Deckhand Sports, about their kill bag gang. We're going to show you this video right now, and then we'll talk right afterwards. That is an absolutely incredible bag right there. That bag is so insane the way that Dave put it together, and it's got the ribs in the bottom, Benny, so it keeps the fish out of the water, which is super big time. You know, when you throw your bluefin or your yellowtail in the bag and they're sloshing around in that water, it's not a good thing. You get back in and your fish are all white and their eyeballs are all yellow and it just doesn't, and your gills are all white. It's not cool. Look, this is the best bag I've ever seen designed. And then look at the thickness. So it doesn't have any of that condensation. And we were just talking about your new rig. You got to keep that thing clean. You don't want a bunch of fish guts, and you're going to catch yellows and you're going to catch sea bass and you're going to catch bluefin. It's an accidental catch when you go with Benny. You're in there catching calicos. The next thing you know, a 30-pound sea bass eats your lure. You're not throwing that one back. You're going to throw them in the kill bag.
Yeah, or 3 60-pound sea bass. But yeah, friends of mine have that bag, and they're very, very, very impressed with it as far as the ice longevity and, you know, the fish coming out like it's in a fish hold. But, you know, the ribs on the bottom are huge because it's keeping it from the melted ice, keeping it above it. And I know some of them will actually lay bags, unopened bags first, and then lay the fish, kind of lay smaller bags in between the ribs and then placing the fish on top like that. And it just keeps your catch. I mean, if you're eating fish and want to make sure you're eating the best quality, a good bag like the Deckhand bag, I mean, you can't go wrong with it. Not at all.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they're leak proof too, which is a big deal because at the end of the day, you're going to want to take your fish home with you. If you're out on your skiff and you just throw that bag in the back of your car or your truck, you don't have to worry about all that water getting in there. Plus, it's the way that the walls are so thick, you don't have the condensation, which the old bags, other bags, you have the condensation. So it still gets your car or your truck all wet inside, but you don't have that bleed through with the condensation. It's a spectacular bag. So check it out. Go to Deckhand Sports. Elliot will throw the QR code up there and you can go check out all the different products he has. He has bags for your giant bluefin. He has bags for your calico bass. He has bags for your rockfish. We were even using the backpack bags to take our lobsters home on the trips when we were catching all those lobsters. So it's a cool product. Check it all out. Go look at it and then use our code through the QR code YSWG when you put in the code, when you're checking out, put in YSWG or use the QR code and you're going to save on your bag when you buy it. It's a bitchin' product. You get to save 15%. So now we just saw that video. Elliot kind of teased that little video right before the commercial about you had a couple of legends of the largemouth bass fishery. Unfortunately, we lost both those guys, but That fishery at San Clemente Island is one of the most unbelievable fisheries on the planet, Benny. And you are very dialed into that. I'm a dialed into it guy with bait. You're dialed in with, and I saw you for years while I was fishing there on the yacht I was running. You were there all the time, banging all those inside spots that I would love to get into on the big boat. Talk about Clemente for a little bit, gang. You got to listen to this because this is the most unbelievable fishery in our backyard. You don't have to go to Mexico. You don't have to go to the Channel Island. This thing's right here in the middle of Southern California.
San Clemente Island's a special place for a lot of guys now because they have the vehicles or the boats to get there. And when you get there, it's I've had a couple of trips where they just don't bite right away. You got to kind of look around. I mean, we all talk about conditions, right? And you know how Clemente is. You'll go, I don't know, start at Gold Bluff. There's no conditions. You go all the way up to the East End, and it's ripping, and you got to find a happy medium. But some days it bites, like this day with Aaron and John. The minute we pulled up, we were catching 3 to 6 pounders all friggin' day. Even when it slowed down, we were picking away at them. But this was full speed in the afternoon, in December. So, but you just have to kind of work at it. And when you do get on them, boy, you just stay on them. You don't need to look anywhere else. Certain places do bite better than others. I mean, look at how close we are to the wash there. Safety is huge. We're literally about 15 feet from the boilers there. You can see all the wash. It was a flat, calm day that day. And, the fish were tight to the rocks and you had to cast. And we were throwing 9-inch swim baits that day, a 9-inch swim bait. And we're catching 3 to 6 pound calicos. Just phenomenal. But you just have to, safety, obviously getting there and coming back. As you know, Dave, you've seen us come back there and it's sheep in the horizon. I call it sheep when you start seeing those little puffs out there. And especially when you look at the radar and all you see is sheep on the radar, it's pretty brutal because you know what you're going to hit. And, but we call it the rite of passage. That's just what happens. You just have to be safe going in and out, and you have to have the right vehicle to take you to and from. And once you're there, you just got to make sure you're just like any trip, your knots are tied well, your gear's in good shape. And, the thing about guests that fish with me, I have, some of the best gear that's serviced every year. My partner is Shimano. So all my gear is Shimano and G Loomis. My spinning gear is some of the best. And a lot of my other partners like war baits for the heads and kicker for the surface iron. Just making sure you have the right gear. And if you don't have it, I usually have it. I have more than enough. But safety is always utmost. And I'm going to put you in areas where if you don't feel comfortable, then I won't put you in the sweet spot. You see that wash back there. I mean, that's the sweet spot. That's China Point right there. And Dave, you probably fish the outside for yellows and bass, and we're way inside the rock there. So, and we're sitting in probably 15 feet, and that's all that wash going over the top of China right there proper.
Yeah, that's like a big horseshoe area right there. It's a pretty bitchin' little place right there. And we've looked at it a million times from the big boat and thought how bitchin' it would be to get inside there. And like Benny said, that's a flat glass calm day. But right there, you got the current comes around that corner and causes mass havoc right there. And that's why those calicos are living in there, gang, because of all that cheering up. There's so much bait fish swimming up and down the island that when it gets to that corner, it gets all confused. And and you can tell those calicos are right there for a reason, because they know that current's pumping right there and swinging that bait down to them. San Clemente Island has got so many bitchin' areas to fish. The front side of the island, the side closest to land, is just unbelievable. The cliffs, the beauty, but the area that really is fun to fish is that backside, the weather side of the island. That's where it gets really fun when you have a day like Benny's showing you right here where it's flat, calm. Because that fish on the front side, the water's so calm that it's got to be hard to get a bite on the plastics. Am I right, or am I?
It can be, but it's funny that the fish, I mean, lately the fish have been up shallow there. So I mean, it is March, but we were there January 1st, had an incredible bite, like in 5 feet of water, just fishing parallel to the beach where you had, I mean, we were releasing 4-pounders like nobody's business. And I know Matt and his buddy Randy were up way tied up by the runway fishing, 10 feet of water and hammering 5-pounders, So yeah, the front side can be very good for numbers for sure. You can catch numbers, a lot of 1 to 4-pounders. Every now and then you'll get a rogue, 8-pounder. But generally, if you want bites, that front side, you're going to catch them. And then if you're off the beach a little bit, you got to be careful because you get one of those 20-pound yellows come up and eat your swim bait. And they're always there.
Yeah, that front side of the island, I fished it since the 70s, and we did it bait. We're bait fishing, and you get the boat backed into 5-6 feet of water, and we're chucking 1-pound mackerel in there on 80-pound monofilament, catching those 8 to 10-pound calicos in a foot and a half. We used to tell everybody on the boat, Benny, if you can hit the beach and pull the mackerel off the beach a couple of inches, that's where the monsters live. They live in that 1 to 2 feet of water right in the eel grass. And it was insane. We can't really do that much anymore because of, back to what we were talking about, the barges. The California sea lion has made it almost impossible to fish that big bait there on a sport boat. They're going to eat every mackerel when it hits the water. But I'm lucky that I was able to fish when it wasn't sea lion central. But what Benny's doing, and I saw you ask the question, Matt or Ryan, Matt, you asked the question about, are you anchored? No, these guys are basically running and gunning. Benny's bringing the boat in and out of those boiler rocks, watching the swell. He's kind of in control of making sure those 2 guys don't die on his boat. He's watching the waves, he's watching the swells, but he's putting you in the sweet spot. You're not anchoring in there. You're moving in and out of it as the swells allow you to, right, Benny?
Yeah, especially in the wash there. The question that Matt asked, what percentage is Benny on the main motor compared to trolling motor? When I'm fishing in shallow like that or in the wash, I'm in the main motor 100%. I'm near the console and I'm near the wheel and the throttle. I mean, one step I can get out of harm's way. With the trolling motor, even though it's a good trolling motor, it just doesn't push people. It just doesn't push you out of the danger zone fast enough. Where main motor, you say, hey guys, you need to sit down. We need to get the heck out of here. It just makes it safer. Again, I mentioned that earlier as just being safe, but the main motor is huge. It's just huge.
And gang, we have people watching all over the United States right now and listening in their cars as they're driving. We want to talk about San Clemente Island. San Clemente Island is leased by the United States Navy. So there's big sections of the island that we're not allowed to go into. Then there's the whole island is actually a firing range, and the Navy SEALs and Top Gun school and so many different things. In the East End, we're seeing this right now. That is a giant target range where they shoot giant coordinates from battleships and stuff like that right onto the beach there. So not only is Benny constantly watching what's going on so his guys are safe, but he's also monitoring that channel 16 because they can they own the island or they lease it, whatever you want to call it. So the United States Navy could shut it down at any given second, and you're told, and you've been told many times, and so have I, okay, you in the little white boat in the whitewash in there, you got to get out of here now. We're going to open fire.
Dave, and I have to tell guys that, when you do go over there, you have to have a working VHF radio, right? I mean, and keep it on 16 when you're at the island, because they may tell you to leave a certain area and goes, hey, is east of this okay? Is west of this okay? And they'll direct you. They go, yeah, you can fish about 100 yards up. This area is hot. And again, it's for our safety. It's not because, they know what we're doing there. They know we're fishing, but if they close the island and tell you that you have to leave, just reply back and say, yes, sir, we're going to give us like 5 minutes to gather our gear, and we're going to be out of here in 5 minutes. And we'll be heading, whatever way you tell us to go, because it's happened quite a bit. But have your radio on. I've heard them so many times when guys are fishing just outside of like near Desperation, and they're trying to clear that area, and they'll say white yacht, with the tower. We've asked you many times to leave, and then they have to send a helicopter out. It doesn't bode well for the private boaters, whether you're small or big. I get it. You're in the zone, but they still have, autonomy on that island. We're lucky, to be able to fish the island, because at one time they wanted to actually close the island. So if it wasn't for Bob Fletcher and his group to work out something, then, I wouldn't have this fishery to come to, or you guys be able to fish bluefin on the west end, on the east end, Desperation, and that sort of thing.
And that's a big thing to understand, gang. And it makes me very upset because I work so closely with War Heroes on Water. When they have to throw a helicopter up in the air to go kick you out of an area because you didn't turn on your radio, that pisses me off more than anything, because now we're taking young men and women, we're putting them in harm's way. When they fly the helicopter to come get you out of the area, that is unfortunately, we're putting men and women in harm's way to move fishermen out of an area that you've been told 100 times not to be in. Plus, they have a website that tells you when they're going to close areas, but they can close it even after you read the website. They can still close it at any given time. So like Benny was saying, if you don't have channel 16 on, and Benny is, and I am, and we're listening and we're hearing that you're putting our men and women of the armed forces in harm's way to come get you to move out of an area because you were catching a fish. How lame is that? I mean, that is the lamest excuse I've ever heard. And there's sport boat captains that constantly are in there. We won't talk about their name, but you guys that fish on the sport boats, you know who they are because you're on their boats when it's going down. And when the helicopter shows up, that means, like Benny said, they've already called them enough times. They don't want to put the helicopter up in the air. They don't want to put our men and women in harm's way to get you out of there, but they're there to do operations to keep America safe. So remove your head from your butt and don't be the problem out there, please. I'm sorry, I didn't have a better way to say it. That's just
okay. That's put perfect, because again, I've heard it many times, and the minute they tell me a certain area is hot or it's going hot, or they say, hey, white boat with 3 anglers, they see it coming there. The minute I get 10 miles off the island, I have it on 16 or it's on scan, just because if I'm 10 miles off, at least I've got 20 miles to go to the Catalina if they tell me the island's completely hot and I got to leave. So that saves me 10 miles. But just FYI, just monitor your radio. You can put it down, whatever it is, and respond to the guys. Be respectful. Just respond to Kraken when he asks you, to move. Those guys see you coming. They know you're coming.
Oh yeah, and they know, they can hear you talking. You don't understand. They can see you and hear you like you can't even comprehend, because I've seen the pictures. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, we were watching you guys talking. And I'm like, you're kidding me. So you knew what I was, we knew exactly what you were doing. That's not a good feeling when you're not paying attention.
Right.
And we don't want to lose that fishery. The bottom line is what Benny and I are talking about is we don't want to lose that fishery. We do not want to lose that fishery. That is a super important fishery in Southern California, and we could blow it. They could take it away tomorrow, because my dad used to talk about this all the time. The same sport boat captains are causing the same problems all the time. And then they see the sport boat in there, and then the private boaters all go in there. They're like, well, they're in there. Why can't we go in there? Well, and now you got 10 boats in there. It's not cool. It's not right. You don't look bitching because you're in there. You look like a booger eater. So let's not be part of the problem. Let's be part of the solution. We want to keep Clemente open for a very long time. One of our guys was asking, what's your fuel situation? Talk about your new boat for a little bit. I mean, we've been talking, we're all over the place. Talk about your new boat. And what's
new boat, Camus 26 hybrid, made in Ashland, Tennessee. It's you're seeing all these like guys are coming out with their bigger boats that are step tall. This one's a step tall, but it's only 26. For what I do, it's perfect. I mean, it's got a 400 Mercury Verado V10, one of the newer motors. It has 90 gallons of fuel. It has, as far as electronics, it has Humminbird Solex 12s, side imaging, down imaging, 2D, and then I have 175 kW kilowatt through hull transducer. I don't know why I got it, but they just said add all the options you want. So why not? In case I fish rockfish or see tuna 1,000 feet down, I don't know. It's got great visibility. It's got the new Minn Kota Instinct trolling motor, so 100 plus pounds of thrust. It can move that 26 boat around. And then the original question was fuel consumption. It's got 90 gallons of fuel. So I just put fuel in it. I went from Long Beach to Isthmus to the West End, West Cove. And then the bite just was terrible. And I had some good regulars. And then so I went from West Cove to Hermosa Reef, which is like, I don't know, 30 something miles. And I made it to Hermosa Reef from West Cove in 40 minutes. I was doing 45 knots and it was blowing 12 out of the west. So I had to put about close to 38 gallons when I was said and done. Isn't that incredible? 2.4 when I figured, yeah. For the most part, I ran it. The sweet spot on that boat's 35, about 34, 33 knots. So it can move. It's stable. It's an incredible platform. A lot of questions I get asked is, can you do 4 now? I go, well, I like 3 because I have 3 of everything. It has 3 seats. And I just don't want anybody to be left out, unless we have a local half day and we post up at the rig and catch 100 little bass or on the horseshoe that's biting like it did last year, then I'll take 2 kids and 2 dads. No problem. We can make that work. Spinning rods, small swim baits. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm getting about 2.2 to about 2.2, 2.3 miles per gallon. So that's about what, 190 maybe 200 if I run it right. So that's my range, 200 on 90 gallons. So I haven't been to Clemente yet with it, so I couldn't answer that. But hopefully soon.
Yeah, because that boat's going to eat Clemente up. That's going to be insane. You're going to have a great time on that boat. The fuel consumption's incredible. That's insane because if you did the math where he probably went 80 miles for 32 gallons of fuel, maybe more. Yeah. I was just trying to do quick math while you were telling me everywhere you went. I'm like, and then you went to the gas station, put in 32 gallon. Wow.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
Gang, Benny's big time tournament guy for a very long time. Talk about your tournament fishing, Calico bass. I mean, we hear everybody talking about largemouth bass tournaments, and right now the classics going on.
Yeah.
But Calico bass tournaments are pretty spectacular. I was in the very beginning time, and it was pretty bitching. That your Calico bass tournament stuff is pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything I got into. That's why I never golf. Because I know I would get into it and try to learn as much. When I got into this whole bass thing, I really got into it 100%. If I was going to fish artificials, I'm going to fish 100%. And that's what I did. And that's how I made my reputation. And Palos Verdes was like my backyard, just as Dana and that area is yours. I got to know it pretty well, and I surfed. I surfed, so I knew where all the reefs were. And I tell this to a lot of people. I go, do you know any of the reefs out here? Do you know how these underwater points set up and how the kelp set up? And that's how I learned. And seasonal things, when the fish spawn, when they don't. It's all, nowadays with social media, you can gather so much info to learn, but nothing better than, as what we call it, time on the water.
Right.
Because our environment changes all the time. It can change daily. It can change hourly. You have to figure it out on the fly. And in our jobs as guides and charter captains, our job is to catch fish, right? And if they want trophies, you really got to put yourself in a position to catch trophies. I'm fortunate enough to have 4 of my clients catch calico bass over 10 pounds. Okay, so, and they're all on artificials. And I've got 2 over 10 myself. That's a 10-4 San Clemente on a surface iron. I've caught both of mine on surface iron. So that was 2014. That's a 7. But the majority of my big fish have been on surface iron, but you catch them on weedless. I caught one 7 on New Year's Day on a 7-inch swim bait. But as much info as you do get out there, nothing more fun than learning and figuring it out on your own. I think that's probably the most gratifying thing, is when you learn it on your own, because you can tell somebody where to go, right, Dave? You can go, hey, you can bring up the old VHF tapes on how to fish the horseshoe kelp and get all the spots. But if you don't know how to set up on it, or know the currents, or what the tides do to the currents and water temp does to it, or if there's bait or not bait, it makes a difference whether you're going to get bites or not. Fishing area. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. The conditions are super important to understand how to read that. We had a guy, just one of our good buddies, Tim, ask about colors of baits. But as far as you can get that Navionics chart plotter or chart thing now, and it shows you all the rocks, but it doesn't tell you that this is going to fish really good on the downhill, or really good on the uphill, or really good on the incoming or the outgoing, which you get. Now, Benny was throwing some stuff, the VHS tapes I made back in the 30 years ago. We've taken that to a whole new level now with my website, and it's all digitalized and it's available for you on the app. So when you're out there doing what Benny's talking about, now you have an app that your saltwater guide put together for you. So you can see if you're on the horseshoe, or if you're at Point Furman, or if you're down in Dana Point, where you kind of caught one of my pets there, you got a 10.8 pounder down there. You can get all this information on my website, gang. So everybody I bring on, everybody talks about conditions all the time. The website explains to you all about conditions. And Tim, what Benny will probably tell you, and what I learned fishing with plastics, is yes, color is important because of water. You got to look at the water. When you're looking at the water, Benny's a master at it. I kind of know a little bit about it, but I'm not a plastics guy. But the water condition and what he's looking at, he can tell you right away. Okay, it's going to be the mink. It's going to be the mint surface iron today, or it's going to be the root beer swim bait, or it's going to be the blue crankbait, or the chartreuse, whatever. Benny can tell you it's about the water, right?
And everybody has their go-to bait, because we always say, whether it's I had a guy get a calico over 8 on a pink swim bait. Fish what you feel. You're going to fish it harder than the other guy that's not going to get near pink. But I'm going to give you suggestions, but hey, if you want to do your thing, then have at it. I hope you catch a big one, So, but there are some general rules. It's still dark days, dark colors, bright days, bright colors. You go through any guy who owns lure companies, Corey Sandin, the Big Hammer people, and you ask them, hey, what do you think? Well, and this will be the general rule: dark days, dark colors; bright days, bright colors is the general rule. But there's always something that deters from that rule. It could be sunny, the water's dirty, maybe something a little brighter than a natural color. Maybe they're eating, I don't know, those priosomes, they're all red and they're not lazy, that happened a lot last year, where there's priosomes everywhere on the front side of Clemente and all the fish, but they're still eating a red swim bait, go figure. A 5-inch red swim bait, and you'll catch 7-8 pounder, because they're just sucking those things up. They're just lazy. So you got to kind of adapt to what your environment is telling you. So those are the things to pay attention to. Spots are one thing, but some of the spots could be something like an isolated underwater point, with a little bit of kelp that doesn't come to the surface. Now you're talking about a whole different thing, like side imaging, which I use a lot on my small boat. and it shows you rock piles and kelp, and that's a whole nother level as far as fishing. But if you want to keep it simple, pay attention. If there's bait in the area and the bait's kind of just meandering around, then you're not going to get bit there. But if they're balled up in a tight ball and moving all around like something's chasing them, something's chasing them. That's the area to fish. You want to fish behind them because whatever's chasing them is behind them, or and just pay attention to that. That would probably be your biggest clue to what you need to do and where to fish. Along with fish boiling, that's a given. Or a single turn dipping in an area where the bait's all balled up. So,
wouldn't you say when you get to an area, even you're going to get to that zone and you're going to slow everything down in your mind and start to, you guys, a lot of people I see, you guys, your boat goes 1,000,000 miles an hour and you go 1,000,000 miles an hour from spot to spot to spot. Guys that are successful like Benny and Jimmy and Gary, and those guys get to the zone and they slow everything down and they start to pay attention to every little area and what it looks like. And you got to start to put the puzzle together. Time on water. So right now, what I want to talk to you all about is you got an opportunity. We got Benny here with us right now. He's got a charter business where you can go with him on his boat. If you want to get into this lure fishing, I'm the bait guy. You guys, most of you are members of my website. We're focused on bait. If you want to start to learn this, it's a giant learning curve, and it'll cost you a fortune if you go out and try to figure it out on your own. What I would suggest you to do is take you and your buddy and go with Benny on his boat. Go fish coast, go wherever you want to go fish. Tell Benny, hey, this is the area. Do you have anything available to fish in this zone? I bet you he does, because that's what he does for a living. And then you're going to get to start to understand it. You're going to get to know what lures to purchase, what line he's fishing with, what rods. Don't try to figure it out on your own, and don't try to go to a tackle store and tell the guy what you're trying to do. Like Benny said 20 minutes ago, time on water is going to change the game for you, and you're going to get to start to put the puzzle together. So go with Benny on his boat. Let's talk a little bit about your charter business.
Yeah. So, a lot of the questions that are being asked are questions that people can ask me while we're fishing. Whenever I do something, I say exactly what I'm going to do. Hey, I'm going to stop and look at this area real quick. You can make some casts. You can make a handful of casts, but we're probably not going to stay very long. 10, 15 casts, we're out of here. And that's how I base it on. But, my charters, I get anglers that will call and goes, I want to catch yellowtail. If they don't bite, I want to catch halibut. Then if they don't bite, I go, I'm not your guy. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe bite's your guy. Maybe those guys do that. I mean, my business is trying to catch trophy calico bass or calico bass on artificials. That's my goal. That's my number one goal. Now, July and August, though, as you know, Dave, at Catalina is probably the best time to catch yellowtail, calico bass. You catch 150, 200 of those things on bait. Let's face it, you do a lot of catching, and that's the month I fish a lot of sardine at the island. It's because we're going to catch, and a lot of my guests know that. I do get isolated trips to go to Clemente if the weather's right, because that's when you can catch some big ones there. But I leave that to the serious guys, unfortunately, instead of the novice. Even though I get a lot of novices that ask, I really have to kind of, talk to you about it and know what you're up against. It's a 2-hour ride going there. It's about 4.5 hours total ride trip. And if it's bad coming back, it could be longer. So I have to make sure you're up for that. If not, Catalina might be the place to go. It's shorter. It can be less than an hour to and from, and the weather's going to be usually pretty warm. You'll get some wind in the afternoon, and you'll catch. It's guaranteed catch and chance of catching a good one. So my service, I teach, I mentor. I'm really big on the fundamentals. Like my number one thing, and I talk about it in seminars, is you can have the best gear out there, right? I mean, you can have the best line, the best reel, the best rod, you're dressed the part and all that. But if you can't get to the fish, if you can't make a basic cast from the boat to the fish, then, you know, all that goes through the wayside, right? It'd be like a golfer having the best gear, but he can't swing worth anything. So I really try to watch what my guests do when they're fishing. Number one is the cast. I watch them cast, and I always refer to the cook, the captain, the deckhand. Watch how they cast. They're the best casters. Oh, maybe the older deckhands, maybe, or the guy sitting in the corner drinking coffee with a long jig stick and smoking a cigarette. He's usually like your sniper, right? He's the sniper. He comes on the boat 5 times out of the week. He usually catches the biggest fish because he watches, kind of analyzes. But when he makes a cast, it's pretty. And I always tell my guests, you hold the rod at that little butt thing at the bottom, and you cup the hand in your reel here, keep your thumb on it, and you go 2, you end up at 9. You ask any of the people that have been casting forever, they're going to show you this motion all day. All day, 100%. Watch Dave's videos. He does that just like clockwork. This comes over. And I learned from Frank Lepresti a long time ago with a clothespin, with a Squidder Junior, and try casting that thing with a clothespin and 15 or 20 pound line. It's hard. And a whippy rod like a true or a Saber 276. Right. They're not easy to cast. They're just all graphite and heavy. Nowadays, we have such great equipment, so why not put it to work? I always refer it to like one of your best employees at work or work for you. You always give them the best job because you know you can count on them. Put that gear to work. It's the best gear. It's the best equipment. Why not fundamentally learn how to cast? That's number one. Number one is casting and getting to the. Once you get to the fish, now you can really take it apart. Hey, fish are boiling up here, or we kind of drifted different. Now they're at 11 o'clock. And I always refer to the boat, and I'm sure you do too, Dave. Is the bow is 12, the stern is 6, everything else is the numbers in between. So I always have to coach my guests that, hey, if I say they're coming up at 10 o'clock, the boat is the bow is 12. Just keep that in mind. Stern is 6, and a lot of them don't get it. And every captain I know refers to their boat as a clock. It's 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So when you hear that, just again, if you hear that, hey, the fish are coming up, starboard side at 3 o'clock, you're going to cast on the right side in the middle of the boat. So just so you know, but that's what I do. I really try to coach them, and I've taught a lot of kids their first time casting a bait caster because they want to learn. They see how far you can actually cast with it. They like the aspect of casting a lure. They don't care if they catch. They just want to wing that thing a mile, right? That's half the fun for them. I taught my 8-year-old grandson to cast a bait caster about a month ago, fishing spotties, and he actually caught a spotty on a spinner bait on an 8-foot rod and a bait caster. For me, that's it. That was the best, right?
Absolutely.
But you've got guys that maybe been fishing forever, and you can tweak their cast, and they're like getting another 15 yards. That's still farther than where they're casting. So I do a lot of that, and then if I get a lot of guys that have their own boats, they want to know, and I go through everything, what I'm doing, what I'm looking for, why I'm doing it, why we're making 10 casts here, 10 casts there. A lot of people could only fish a certain day. It may not be the best for tides. So I go, hey, we're going to spend a lot of time. We're going to move just because we're going to try to find conditions, but I want to give you an opportunity to at least try to catch one in every spot. And I also get a feel for how they cast so I can tweak their cast. So it's kind of like batting practice, right? I'm watching them do their deal, and then I can tweak their swing. And then when it does start biting, now they've got it down. Now they can optimize and capitalize on fish catching.
And that's why I wanted him to bring all that up, because, gang, we talked about San Clemente Island a lot on this show. But, gang, if you're just starting to get into this, you don't want to go to Clemente.
No.
That's not what you want to do, because Many days, Benny would come and park next to me when I was running that big Hatteras, and he'd get in the lee of our boat, and they would put all their gear on. And I mean, they would take their clothes off and put on their foul weather gear and their foul weather, all the AFCO, the bitch and AFCO stuff that keeps you dry. And my passengers would go, what's he doing? And I go, they're getting ready. Look out there. And what Benny says is sheep. It's the white caps out on the water. And he knows that channel between Clemente and Catalina is going to be, you're going to be like a submarine on his boat. There's no way around it. And if you're just learning how to cast, and let's say you could, like Benny said, you could wing it a mile, but you have no accuracy. Now if you can wing it a mile, now start to learn about putting it in the spot. But you don't want to go to Clemente and do that, because you're going to get your butt. You go to Catalina, you're going to get another 2 hours of more fishing time.
Yeah.
You're going to get to learn all about placement of the bait. Yeah. Guys like Benny and the guys that fish with them all the time and always are catching big fish, it's because they put, like he said about the guy smoking the cigarette, drinking the cup of coffee, he doesn't make a lot of casts. He makes the cast. Yeah. Benny doesn't make a lot of casts that aren't in the zone. His casts are perfect, and they go right to where that fish is. He makes 4 or 5 cranks. He doesn't get bit. He speed cranks it back to the boat, and he throws it back in there again, because he knows that little spot is where that 10-pounder is, or the 11 or 12 or 15, the world record. So don't go to Clemente with Benny. Go to Catalina. Learn how to fish. Learn from an expert on plastic bait placement. That is the key to this whole thing, is placing your bait in the right spot so that you get a bite. If you just sat back, like when I go fly fishing and I hire a guide, every time I go to new water, I watch the guide. I want to see him fish. I want to see where he's putting the bait, where he's putting the fly. I'm going to kick back and watch. And they always look at me and go, why aren't you? I want to see what you're doing. Yeah. Because I want to learn. I don't want to waste a bunch of flicking cast. And if I'm going with Benny, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go, hey, Benny, make a few casts here. Let me see what's going on. What am I supposed to be doing? And then you go, okay, I see. He's putting it on that little corner, right on that little corner where the kelp is almost touching the rock, and he's putting it through there. And that's going to change what you guys are going to do. So real quick, we already blew through an hour. It's Calico Bass. You and I, we could talk for hours and hours. Throw up the website one more time. Go over the prices. Go over how to get a hold of you. Talk about it, because there's a lot of people that aren't seeing this. They're only going to hear it.
Somebody already mentioned that my prices are too low. So my son tells me that all the time. But anyways, it's I think Elliot had it up. There you go. Yeah, I mean, a half day. I don't even remember what my price is. Maybe that's why Elliot's going to click on it. Is that half day? And while he's clicking on that, if you want to get optimized time to learn and catch a few, fall, September, and even August, and then, July's done, but even June, and book a full day trip. A full day trip, you're going to get lots of time on the water. We don't have to go very far. What am I at? Like 900 for a half day trip for 3 people. Full day is 1,000. You're adding, I don't know, 4 more hours. You get 8 hours. Catalina's 1,400. And I have all the tackle. If we're fishing bait in the summer and July and August, I have all the baits and et cetera, et cetera. Newbie Painter, Benny, are you on Instagram, Facebook, and or YouTube? Yes, yes, and yes. And then Bobby D. Peck, are jigs lures better than live bait? I don't know. I can't say. I mean, they're catching a lot of bluefin tuna on lures, so I don't know. I mean, got a lot of bass on lures. Bait sure does help, but bigger ones seem to want. I don't know. Every situation is different. White when it's cloudy, or is it based on water conditions? I think we covered that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I also do offer beverages, water, Coke, Diet Coke, Gatorade, have all the safety equipment. I'm 100-ton. I think Elliot already posted 100-ton master's license. I used to have a 6-pack license. I upgraded to 100 and towing. Why towing? I don't know. Just because. And this year I actually have, if people don't have the correct gear coming back from Catalina in the afternoon, I actually invested in those transformers, the pants and the jacket from AFCO. If you don't know what they are, you can look them up at AFCO.com. It's called Transformer, completely dry. And they're mainly for the summer. Pants, jacket, I have every size up to triple X, believe it or not. I want to make sure, again, I'm trying to run a premium operation, premium gear, premium boat, and just want to make sure I take care of my guests and have a good time and catch a few fish.
Yeah, you definitely won't be disappointed. Throw out the phone number one more time for the people driving around, and slow down when you're telling them your Instagram, Facebook, all your handles, because you went through real fast and there's a lot of people driving in the car trying to write.
Yeah, we don't. But they can always go back to YouTube and get the info, correct?
Right.
Yeah. But my phone number is 310-779-0397. Instagram is coastal_charters. Facebook is Coastal Charters. And website is fishcoastalcharters.com. And my talented son set it up so if you type that in, it pops up the very first thing. Even Calico Bass, you type up Calico Bass, it's probably the first site that comes up because he's that good.
There it is. There's Benny's. There's Benny's phone number right there, gang. Elliot just threw it up there on the screen.
Thanks, Elliot.
And I want to thank you all for watching the show today. Benny, we blew through the hour quick.
That was fast.
We're talking Calico Bass. There's nothing better.
I enjoyed it.
It's so 100%. Much fun. We will definitely invite you back on the show. I hope you have time. I know you're going to be busy here for the next few months. So good luck out there fishing, gang. Take advantage of Benny. You want to go out there and learn how to fish the plastics. It's a whole different world than bait fishing. It's a whole different thing. It's not even the same. There's no anchoring. He doesn't do anchoring like I talk about how important it is. And the reason why is because we're trying to increase the prey density in a spot and get Benny's going, okay, they're not here. They're not there. He's looking at the spots. He's banging. He's throwing artificials. He's not fishing bait. It's a different thing. You got to get going with Benny to get out there and do it. Don't go buy a bunch of lures if you don't know what you're doing. Slow down. Go with Benny once. Just go and see what it's all about. And he'll tell you what rod you need and what reel you need and what bait you need. It'll help you tremendously. Don't go in there just spending money. The guy that spends the most money never wins. Right?
I agree.
So thank you very much, Elliot. Thanks for producing an epic show as usual. You're the very best in the business, and I appreciate you being a part of your saltwater guide. Benny, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Truly was a joy to have you here. So thank you all very much for watching. We're going to split out of here. Have a great weekend. Be kind to each other. We'll be back with you on Monday. All our guides will be with us on the show. We'll have Al, Sonny, Pablo, Justin talking about what's coming up. And then on Tuesday, we got the guys from Bass Pro Shop going to be on the show. They're opening brand new Bass Pro in Irvine. It's going to be insane. Inside the orange curtain, that's going to be incredible. We've never had anything like that. Bass Pro Shops in Irvine opening up on Thursday. And the Promar guys and Justin Botrell will be there meeting and greeting everybody. I don't know if you're going to be there, Benny, but there's going to be a lot of people at that new Bass Pro Shops. I'm sure Benny will make it there one day because I'm sure AFCO will have a big presence there eventually. And Shimano is going to have all kinds of stuff. So there'll be lots of stuff for everybody at the Bass Pro opening. And then on Friday, we got Bill Batson from Batson Enterprises going to be on the show. I mean, we just keep bringing in these phenomenal guests like Benny. I don't know. Everybody wants to be on my show. It blows my mind. I'm going to keep bringing in these bitching guests if you guys keep watching. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Turn off the news. They're all lying. This is the only place you